Yes, I'm losing my voice, but other than that, I'm
That's
wonderful.
noble.
So
Yep.
let's introduce everyone for a really cool discussion. And I'll get up and Lindsay, could you? Are you filming? Okay. I was gonna say we need to move those chairs. I'm OCD. They're gonna drive me crazy.
Then I'll okay.
That's just
We have
That's okay.
yeah, then
let's
I'll
close
take
the door.
the
Yeah,
chairs.
if you want to do that, Lindsay, that'd be great. If you could just move them. Yes, it's like, why are they there? So.
They're there for the invisible valor.
Yes.
Jay. So
Hey.
when they leap over the desk to get at you, you'll be sick.
Yeah. Well, anything's possible.
Yes.
No, especially with Ed here. So welcome. We're going to talk. We're going to have a really fun discussion. Last year we had a really easy topic because we've never done Ed's maps, and this year we was like, what can we talk about, Ed? And so let's do the introductions. Anna, go for it, please.
Okay, I'm Anna B. Meyer, and I do maps of places that don't exist, of usually Greyhawk for the most part, but I've done a bunch of other stuff too. And so then you get to come to wonderful conventions like this, see awesome people, and talk about things that your neighbors never understand what the heck you're doing. But yeah, so I've been doing it for like 35 years and about 10 years as a professional. So I've met for Kobo Press and probably about a dozen other publishers by now. Yeah.
And I'm at Greenwood. 55 years ago, I created the Forgotten. 56 years ago, I created the Forgotten Realms. So it's all my fault.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yep.
Definitely not. And I'm J.K. Lord Gazumba. I have the second longest campaign that we know of at 45 years. Ed always lets me know that, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We've all been good friends over the last couple of years. Ed's been so generous, a very good proponent of Greyhawk. I'm honored to have him DM in my campaign in Greyhawk, and we'll do that tomorrow. Right. Plus, we always do a talk show on my Gabbin talk show on Sunday nights every couple months, and we have all sorts of different topics between the three of us. So we really wanted to bring this to you here, and today it's going to be Connecting Worlds, which Ed says there's a lot going on between Forgotten Realms and Greyhawk, so we're going to find out some things about it. We're going to let you ask any questions you want.
Yeah.
All right. So, Ed, why don't you give us a synopsis of what do we want to discuss today? How's that sound?
Sure. What we were discussing is portal fantasy within the D&D worlds and between the D&D worlds. Portal fantasy is not new. The multiverse was not created by Marvel. It was not created by Michael Moorcock. It was created long before that. The very first novels written in English were published as novels as opposed to serialized magazine things by a gentleman quite famous called William Morris. He founded Caldecott Press. There's the Caldecott Medal. He composed music. He was an architect. He built furniture. He made wallpaper. He was a publisher, including new and inventive ways of using leather and binding books. And he was a writer. And his very first novel was the story of the Glittering Plain. The second one was The Well at World's End. The fourth novel was The Wood Between the Worlds, and it's a portal fantasy. So you'll go back to the 1800s, the mid-1800s, we have portal fantasies. So the multiverse has been around since then.
Wow, did I know that?
Yeah, so we are now going to talk particularly about the links between the Forgotten Realms and Greyhawk. And there are a lot of them, including one specifically anointed by Gary.
Ooh.
Guys.
I'm going to guess. I'm going to get On Alley? No. Okay.
See?
Wow. I'm going to learn something.
Yep.
That's fantastic. I don't know, what do you think we're going to get out of this discussion?
Well, first of all, we get a lot of historical anecdotes, but we can also think a little bit about the nature of these things, both from like thematical in the stories, but also how do I handle this game mechanically? Meaning, do they need to? We've had tuning forks, we've had rules, what happens, and how do you discover them? Can you detect them, etc. That's another aspect as a DM when you plan these things. How do you get your players to find them or not to find them, or the villains to use them, etc. and so on. So that's another aspect of it that I think is interesting.
For me, I want to know, can I apply this into my campaign?
Yeah.
I always worry about going one step too far. You know, that jumping the shark in the campaign, and I don't want it to become not about Greyhawk anymore, and about the setting,
Yeah.
and becoming too big, right? So,
Yeah, you have that other half of the map. You haven't jumped to that yet.
yeah,
so,
I haven't used half of the map in Greyhawk
Yeah.
for 40 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's for me the issue. I don't want it to
Yeah.
become a Planescape
Yeah.
series. I want it to be, you know, what I have now, where, you know, it's all
So
about.
don't take them to a hub of portals where they can go anywhere
Yeah.
because they will go anywhere.
Right, exactly. So I want to see how I can use it in moderation in my game, but make it fun, and then not make it like so that it becomes something else. If that makes sense.
So let me tell you about a root cellar in a tavern, the Jade Jug, in Waterdeep.
Sure.
Not a large, important tavern, but a fixture. One that's been there since time immemorial, as we used to say. And if you go down to the cellar, the wine cellar, which is a dank, cool, stone-lined room with worn steps and rows and rows and rows of giant casks. The cask, second from the end on the right, will sound different than all the other casks depending on where you knock on it. If you knock on the front of it, it sounds like any other cask because there's liquid in the first 3 feet of it that comes out this spigot like everything else. If you knock on it on the sides further back, it sounds hollow. Because yes, indeed, if you know how to do it, you can swing the whole front of the cask open like a door, and the rest of the barrel, which is large enough to walk in, is empty. At the back of that is a door. The door is counterweighted, and it's like all those heavy doors that don't have the swivel point at the end with the hinges. They have the swivel point about a foot in. So if you swivel it this way and step through it, you're stepping into a dank stone passage that looks like it leads to another cellar. And if you take 2 steps along that passage, you're in a cellar in Silvery Moon in the palace. If you turn the door the other way and step through it that way, you are in a tomb, as in a family tomb, as in a crypt, as in a little stone house, in a cemetery, on a hill overlooking the free city of Greyhawk.
Really?
Yeah. And that's blessed by Gary.
Wow.
Awesome.
But you have to know how to open the door the wrong way and edge past the open door on the left instead of
Yeah.
whatever.
Did this
it is.
make it into any publication, Dragon magazine or anything, or was that something you thought about that we should keep that and then use it later maybe in the product?
I wrote it into a module I ran at a Milwaukee era Gen Con.
Cool. Yeah.
Jim Ward played in it.
Yeah.
Who else played in it? I can't remember if Harold played in it or not. Or
Well, Jim-
I think
Yeah.
Harold was supposed to play in it and then had some con duties and had to, get up from his chair and somebody else sat in.
What year do you think that was, roughly?
Gen Con 18, 19, 20
Yeah.
in there. Yeah, one of those. Yeah. But it had initially been shown to Dragon for a fill-in thing because they had this plans that they abandoned, and the plan was to do the very first Dragon annual, and it was going to be a series of short adventures. So it was going to be a magazine that looked like any other issue of Dragon magazine. So it wouldn't have a thick binding. It would be a standard 2 staples binding magazine issue, but it would be all mini dungeons. And it was abandoned because Gary expected all of his staffers to just turn out a mini dungeon, which was fine, but they were all way too busy. So nobody hit their deadlines. So Kim Mohan, who's editor of the Dragon at the time, said, "Hey Ed, can you and Roger Moore, Roger E. Moore, excuse me,
Yeah.
can you rustle up a dungeon, in case we need to fill in?" So we did, and sent them in. those are the only 2 dungeons he ever got. So they didn't publish the issue.
Yeah.
Wow.
But in that was this little trick to get you into the adventure,
Yeah.
and Gary had to sign off on all those. Certain things that added to the lore went to his desk. It was a delay. Well, they
That's great.
went to Frank Benser, you know, and then went on. But you'd see this scrawled "okay" or "no thanks"
Yeah.
across them.
Yeah, because in early days there was a lot of crossovers, meaning they wanted to promote their other games. So you had sci-fi crossovers, meaning Greyhawk was Western. You had a gun-toting hero in Merlin, and you had the spaceship that came down. That was a spaceship warden and stuff. So portals even to other game worlds and stuff was something they wanted to promote. Then
Yep.
that started to dissipate a bit when it became more like an organized product line that they wanted to fence off a bit more. In the beginning, it was everything.
There was a great
Goes, so to
room.
speak.
Yeah, Len did this in one of his early dungeons.
Yeah.
There was a room where you walk into the room and there is a Wild West gunslinger.
Yeah.
He's blundered through it and he's lost, and he's sitting disconsolately on a chair behind a table, staring at this empty saloon mug because he's drunk everything in it long ago, and he's lost, and he knows he's lost.
Yeah.
And he's sitting down trying to sober up so he can start navigating out of the dungeon. And of course you come in and he so you've got all these guys in full armor just putting down and marching towards him. And of course Len had great fun with, you know what it feels like to get shot, like even if it doesn't go through your armor. So you bam backwards, and the armor is all denting and so on. This is, you know,
Let's
it was a
hope-
Colt long gun.
Yeah. Let's hope it's not the poor wizard who opens the doors.
Yeah. But yeah, he had that encounter in there.
Yeah.
And of course, if you help the guy out, because he's just looking for his way home,
Right.
he presents you with his guns.
I was just going to say, then you get that proverbial way of weird way of always getting high tech or modern tech into the game as some sort of magic. Yeah.
And then you see the wizard pick up the gun and go,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey, at least it wasn't a needler pistol, right? From Barrier Peaks, and right?
I've stayed way from Barriers Peaks, so yeah. I like portals though, but not to science fiction really.
I
Yeah.
didn't. I never heard that. Do you
Yeah.
remember what that was published in? Was that a con he did, or
that was a con. That was
Yeah.
a con thing.
Well, so we've always been looking for Len stuff for the
Yeah, we
Kafka
know that
archive.
Len has one
Yeah.
more convention module that was run that we haven't tracked down yet. So it's still possible that there might be a copy of it somewhere. We're trying to figure out who ran it and who played in it and so on.
That
So, yeah.
adventure also had a room in which you wade through Jello. Not by that name, but
Right.
and of course there's
Yeah.
a monster
Yeah.
under the
Wow.
Jello,
Yeah, more inside.
and
it,
you
yeah.
have to get across the room to move on in the
Yeah.
dungeon.
I'll mention chat here. We are live streaming this
Yeah.
too.
I was thinking, but portals and the mechanics around it have been in every edition of D&D since OD&D, right? It's always been a key concept of one of the many key aspects of the game to be able to but then we have one classical way of portals and stuff is the other planes, meaning we can go to the other planes. Also another part that always been with the game one way or the other, even if it's developed and shifted a bit over the edition, so to speak. But that's one key aspect. But then we have the portals between either the campaign settings and between completely different worlds, so to speak. And in some ways they're similar, but in other ways they're kind of thematically and so on very different. If
Well,
you-
the most
yeah.
interesting for keeping control of your campaign
Yeah.
is to have portals that just whisk you great distances within the
Same,
same
yeah.
world.
Yes,
And-
like teleportation
Yeah.
from a fixed device, so to speak, or a
Yeah.
fixed location. Yeah,
And they become things that you have to control.
Yeah.
Either for the defense of your city or your
Yeah.
realm, you have to at least have a guard over it, or if you want to make bucks, you have a merchant cabal.
Yeah.
Charlie Strauss did
Yeah.
this in his Merchant Princes novels, but he was picking up on the old Philippose Farmer World of Tears, Kikaha the Trickster.
Yeah.
Well, it's a It's a 5-book series plus Red Orc's Rage. So that posits gates of all sorts, and some of them are used as prisons. And Kikaha gets out of a prison cell because he realizes there's no way out of this room, which is in the solid rock.
Yeah.
But his food arrives on a tray. A silver tray arrives in the middle of the table. And at the end of every day, he's supposed to put the plate and his own wastes in a chamber pot on the tray, and it vanishes again, and then a new one comes. So he figures, that's a gate. So he experiments with like trying to prop up the cutlery and stuff to see how high the gate is and how wide it is. And once he figures it out, he curls himself up into a ball, gets on the tray, and gets out. And there are similar things like that all the way through the books. And yeah, that was picked up on early.
And we have one thing that ties into that. That's the Greyhawk, the god trap that Sagi made that prison, since that might involve some sort of planner because you put in demon lords and demigods or whatever, then that needs more than regular stone walls to keep them in. So there's, and entrapment and planner capture and stuff, that's like a standard trope that has been used in so many different ways through the history of the game and various campaigns and stuff. And to me it's interesting because you have the set of rules and mechanics with the different spell, from the gate spell, teleport, and all that. But then often when you have authors and DMs and stuff, we want to thematically do something that is cool and quick and so on. So when you run the story, you don't use the mechanics. You kind of, oh, that just happened and this vanishes and there's the mirror in the wall or the pool that you look into and stuff. So that it's interesting to see that a lot of the basic stuff is there, but once you start running the stories and the games and stuff, then you often simply skip that part and it just happens. And then when the players want to research it and the wizard wants to use it, then he's like, nah, it doesn't work that way. And because you realize as a DM that if you start giving them these tools and they can start using them, things go haywire fairly quickly. And you also realize that if something come in, then it can come out and it can disappear. And if that becomes commonplace, and then we touch into that effect of how common and is magic, and especially powerful magic like moving about the world. If that becomes really common, then why do you travel at all? You can teleport things that are important, and kings and villains, whatever, can just appear where they want to and stuff. And it seems to me that it's one of these things that is awesome. You use it when it's cool, and then when it's not cool, it doesn't work again. So the physics simply adapts to the story, which I, who love consistency, thinks is kind of cringy when that is just, oh, now it's getting overpowered, so it stops functioning for some reason.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's cringy if a player in the campaign sitting there could think that the dungeon master is fudging it for their own purposes. If you establish in lore that something is chancy.
Oh yeah, that's okay. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it needs to have some sort of consistency
Yeah.
on its own terms, so to speak. It doesn't need to correspond to reality, but it needs to have some sort of
So
consistency.
in the realms, Aurora's whole realms catalog, Aurora's is sort of like Amazon. When you teleport something,
Yeah.
the problem with teleportation is you lose something along the way, or something gets twisted along the way, which is why we don't march armies through gates.
You hijack it halfway or something. Yeah.
So what Aurora's does is, if you order a coil of rope or one of those lovely lanterns, they ship 10 of them at different times. Toss them to the gate at different times. 2 or 3 will go missing. 1 or 2 will arrive the other
That
end
sounds
twisted.
like terrible odds if you
Yeah.
only have like 2 out of 3. Imagine going in an airliner and there's only like 60-70% chance you will end up where you want to go.
Oh, haven't you heard? No.
Well, damn, I used to be a pilot. This is
yeah, exactly.
scary. Yep. Yeah.
No, but it's that bad. So
Yeah.
you can't rely on it. So nobody relies on it. Now, if you find the ancient ones, the ones that we can't make anymore, and in the realms that means they were made in Netheril or earlier,
So is fading magic a thing in
Yes.
in Faerun as well?
Well, no,
Or-
fading magical knowledge.
okay.
There's just as much
Yeah.
power.
So the power
around.
is there, but the knowledge of it,
Yeah,
that ebbs and flows over generations
Well,
or something. Yeah.
all sorts of people who create things are paranoid.
Uh-huh.
So their secrets die with them.
That's true. They
Yeah.
don't write it down. And
They either don't write it down or they
Yeah.
guard it so carefully that it ends up being
Yeah.
lost.
Never thought of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, if you're carrying around a magic book and you flip open the page and that's a gate, if you read the words on the page, it becomes alive and you can go through the gate, or you can even be sucked through without
Yep.
intending to. Or if the gate is something where you get the right 6 magic swords and you
Yep.
put them point down in these sockets, the thing in the middle becomes a gate. And through it you go and all the magic swords vanish.
Yeah, but
Forever.
but that is one of these, I think, mechanically very interesting thing to how you can have keys or something, because that's the great way to use it in magic. Meaning collect the 6 stones or whatever, or the 6 words
The
or
rod
something
of
in order
seven.
to exactly. It's
Right,
all the 7
right,
parts. Meaning
yeah.
it's a classic thing that you get these things in order to work. And it might also be, if it's really really powerful, you want to hide the key in more than one place. It also makes sense.
Yeah.
Meaning, if you look at it like modern nuclear technology or whatever, you don't hide all the things. Meaning, you need more than one person. You have 2 people with the right key to turn them at the same time and stuff. So you can have similar things. You need to steal it from 2 in order to get it to work. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't use the rod in campaign play in TSR
Uh-huh, you
because
didn't.
Dave Sutherland once staggered into a room and said, Doctor, it's me, rod of 7 parts."
Oh,
and
God.
everybody said, "Okay, that's it. That's no."
Wow.
so now you know what the rod of 7 parts is. Yeah. Mhm.
So I got a spell, like description, technical. What's the difference? What's the difference between, besides range, a dimension door and a teleport spell?
There you go.
Because
Right.
dimension door is a 4th level spell, and I let mages use it all the time. Teleport's a little more risky, so.
So,
Yeah.
this may not be canon any longer,
Okay.
but this is the way it was explained to me, and Skip jumped in and tried to correct him, so he didn't agree with him.
Okay.
Okay, this is the way that Ernie explained it to me,
Okay.
Ernie Gygax, that a dimension door is a specialized use of the ethereal plane where you go from where you are now to where you want to be, which is a nearby location, by going into the ethereal and out.
Okay.
In effect,
Yeah.
you are temporarily folding the ethereal so this place and your intended destination touch each other, and you're just taking an ethereal, what do they call it, misty step now? or
Yeah,
whatever?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, through.
Okay.
Whereas a teleport involves, it's more like the transporter beam in Star Trek. Yes, I know Star Trek science doesn't make any, we'll hand-wave that for a moment, in that your atoms and everything with you
Thanks,
are,
Bob.
But it kind of makes
And
sense.
then-
Meaning, you can
yeah.
theoretically think about actually deconstructing something, taking all the information, and then rebuilding a copy somewhere
Yeah.
else. That is like theoretically.
but because you are divided
Yeah,
up into your component atoms,
Yeah.
and you make a trip that goes through other planes and comes to a new destination,
Yeah.
you cannot be seen in the ethereal, you cannot be blocked in the ethereal.
Right, it's like instantaneous. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have another part that is also used, meaning we have sometimes you travel there for real, but sometimes you also project yourself, meaning you can astral projection, you have a silver cord in the back that the Githyanki can cut off and then you stranded, so to speak. And some of the gods are also using aspects of themselves, meaning that's another form of projection, which means that sometimes you travel for real, sometimes you just travel and kind of send an avatar, so to speak. There are versions of that too. So that's another aspect of that is also in the rules, so to speak, to some degree.
And there are 2 ways of doing that too.
Yeah.
There's the hard spell, I cast the spell and I project myself to my intended destination.
Yeah.
And then there's the, I have been there before. When I was there before, I picked 1 pebble off the beach. I put it in my mouth and sucked it and then spat it out. I can get right back to that pebble
Mm-hmm.
and project my image from that pebble.
Yeah, there you have like the teleport without error, meaning the more knowledge
Okay.
you have of the place you want to go to, the easier it is to find it. And the way I run it in my campaign is that the gods can. There's two ways you can go to other planes. Meaning you can teleport for real. You can move yourself there, or you can project yourself. And with gods and other powerful beings like demon lords and stuff, meaning they can do the same thing. They can either travel to the prime material plane and do whatever they want to do to get more power, or kill a worshipper who's going astray, or whatever it is, fight another power. But the risky thing with that is that then they can be killed on the prime material plane. So it's much less risky to send an avatar to project themselves there, because if they get killed, then just they can reform a new avatar later. But the problem with it is that that is a magical that others can detect it. If you want to go stealthy in, then you have to travel there, because then you can do it. Then you're only detectable when you actually do the transfer. Once you're wandering around, you're just like a regular creature. So the gods can wander incognito, so to speak, or demon lord. But if you project yourself in, you can be detected as that strange creature, and that means that other powerful beings always looking out for other powerful beings coming in. So that means that it's risky, but also more stealthily to do it. And that way, I try to keep reasonable and reason why gods aren't everywhere, so to speak, and doing things. So, yeah.
That's cool.
So you put the pebble in your mouth and spit it out. Can you teleport to a person wherever they happen to be?
Okay, the assumption that you're using something inorganic and you're touching a bit of yourself to it. So you could pee on the pebble, you could bleed on the pebble, you could wipe your nose on the pedal, is going on to an inorganic, non-porous object. It is assumed that if you romance the princess and you whirl her around in the middle of the dance, you kiss her, and then I can get to the princess from now on, wherever she is. No, because she is a living, organic thing, and she is porous, and she has absorbed your kiss, and it has been sublimated in her own body chemistry. And if you're really good and really powerful, you may be able to locate what land the princess is in right now, but you can't get to her. It's not a tracer, because she's organic.
Interesting.
It's so good to hear that I'm not the first one to overthink D&D physics.
Put the pebble in your mouth, take it out, put it into a locket, and then put it
Yes!
Ah.
Yes, you can. Which is why the smart people sleep naked.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You never knew why? Oh, that's why.
But that ties in. Oh, sorry, please. Yeah.
And that's also why Deja Thoris and all of those people who are in a nudity culture wander around with all sorts of diadems and pectorals and garters and stuff, because, oh, I am beset. 5 guards spring out. Get him.
Wow.
You're never alone
But-
with
but-
the
yeah.
schizophrenic.
But that ties into the meaning. We've heard about tuning forks and stuff. I forgot if that was 2nd edition or 3rd edition, but we can have, meaning you can create a kind of a key that, and I kind of like the idea that there's a location can be tuned to the tune or special frequency or vibration, whatever you might call it. So it's more like string theory in the real world physics, but the fantasy version of it, so to speak. So you can have like a certain vibe to it that you create. So you can find out a place, and then you can create a tuning fork that will
That was the
take you
Splat
there.
book. Wasn't that one of the Splat books in 2nd edition?
Yeah, it was something like that,
Yeah.
and I kind of like the idea. So in my rules, I use beacons. You can create a beacon that is a magical that you can create, and then you can place that somewhere, and someone who knows the frequency of that beacon can then cast a teleport or a gate spell to go to that place. So you can send someone in, place that thing, but they can be very powerful, because then they become like a beacon that can lead you in. So you can kind of place it there, then send in the army to come with demons or whatever it is. But the other problem is that the owners of that realm, or the other, they can go around looking for beacons, and if they found it, they can destroy it. So it's a cat and mouse game.
And
so to
there
speak.
is
Yeah.
your adventurer's profession.
Yeah.
You are a placer of beacons.
Yeah.
Or you
Or you
are
go
a,
hunt them. Yeah.
or you are a sucker of pebbles.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you go
Yeah.
to these places physically,
Yeah.
and you establish the link.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, in the realms, we don't do string theory. In the words of Kim Mohan, we do silly string theory.
Yes. That's awesome.
Serious.
But meaning you can invent
We do
your
talk
own,
about
you can
these things.
tweak
I
and
know,
twist,
exactly.
yeah, D&D physics to something that suits your play style, so to speak, and the theme of your campaign.
And by the
You
way,
can-
this
yeah.
is a hallmark of the TSR worlds of old. Jeff Grubb, who's here at the convention, was the originator of Spelljammer. He's also an engineer. He knows his physics.
Yep.
But he gave us weird physics for Spelljammer so that each ship that is spelljamming is its own gravity well. So if you are a sentry on the ship and it's the late watch and you are smoking and you are not supposed to smoke on watch.
Where's the smoke going when your gravity is? Yeah.
Well, that's and
Yeah.
and you see the hatch in front of you open. Your commanding officer is going to check on you, and you go, and he says, "How's it going?" You say, "Fine, all clear." He's carry on, he says, and passes on. And as he goes, you reach it because your cigarette has just come around the ship.
Yeah.
You take another drag and you toss it again. Yeah, and where the wastes go. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
because I immediately said because I had to write Lost Ships, the 1st supplement. So he said, "Okay, Jeff. So about this gravity well,
Yep.
when you pee and poo." And he goes, "Ed." And I
You don't
said-
do that at TSR or in game.
and I said, "But if you don't work these things out, your players will hit the DM in the first 5 minutes at the He goes, "Yeah, okay, we're going drinking." Because we did, because we had to work it out. So all of this stuff has been worked out. But,
Yeah.
we should actually talk about some more known game
Yes.
connections between the realms and Greyhawk.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Your turn or my turn?
Your turn, because I don't know that many that leads to the
well, we
realms.
know there's one in Iron Gate, right?
Oh yeah, we have the inn of the serpent.
The World Serpent
World
Inn.
Serpent
Inn.
Inn.
Yep.
I think Eric Boyd wrote that one,
Yep.
correct? That article?
He co-wrote. There was an anthology.
Okay.
Yep.
Tales of the Outer Planes, OP1 or whatever. And yeah, the World Serpent Inn exists in all of the different settings.
Yep.
And it's a traveling inn. It's like the Michael Moorcock's Sailor on the Seas of Fate, where you get on board the ship and it sails always in a misty sea, but the misty sea will be on this plane, and it'll be on that plane, and it'll be on the other plane. And if you get off in the right or wrong place, you are now in a new world.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's one of those in the realms because I put it in.
Where is it in the realms?
No, it sails.
Oh, it sails. Okay.
So it's
That's
around
good.
the
Okay.
Nolancer, which are the pirate isles off the Sword Coast.
Okay.
So it's a maze of islands. And because it's impossible to police things, the pirates long ago made those islands their bases. And one among them, there is a ship that is always shrouded in mist. And it's the sort of Flying Dutchman. Mm-hmm. And the joke was, "Oh, so that's the Dread Pirate Robert ship."
Right.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. But it sails everywhere and it's always there. And if you book passage, like if you pay for passage, and you pay the right amount, and it'll be a stiff fee, you will be let off at the place you intend to get to, as opposed to anywhere.
Yeah.
Or nowhere.
Or nowhere.
Wow.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
a mobile one. But there's
Yeah.
another fixed one, and it's in Westgate, in a particular burnt out ruin of a temple that they're currently bickering about what should be rebuilt there. Okay? As in the faith that lost the temple, which is Loviatar.
My favorite.
Yes. Yeah, Jay, whipping boy of
Yeah.
Loviatar. Oh,
Watchers of my Greyhawks.
The old
Yeah.
the old Finnish
Maiden of Pain.
yeah,
gods.
the
Yeah.
old Finnish goddess.
Finnish
Yeah, I'm not
goddess.
inventing anything here. Although I somehow doubt the original Finnish goddess was in Northbound Leather.
No, well, you never know. The
You
Vikings
never know.
might have-
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, that
Yeah.
temple is downtown, and it's a very small site, and it is a burnt out, the stone shell with the heaviest timbers are just charred and all fell in, and everything else is gone. Well, in the basement of that, there is still an operating gate. And everybody who's been in Westgate for a long time knows about
Knows
it.
about it.
They don't know how to use it, they don't know precisely where it is, but they know that temple was associated with a doorway to worlds. That's what it was called, a doorway to worlds. It originally went to 3 different destinations, but to get to the destination you wanted, you had to know the right command word when you set foot on the gate. And setting foot on the gate was, there was a area of tile in a basement room, and you had to walk across it in the right direction. So there's no chair, there's no doorway, it's just walk across this tile in the right direction. And as your feet touch, or one of your feet in the stride touches that tile, the right tile, which is, by the way, a different color than the other tiles, so it's not a guessing game, you know it's there. As you touch it, you say the word, and boop, when your other foot falls, you'll be in the world of your choice, assuming the gate is still working properly. And a particular word will bring you to a particular place in Greyhawk. The black wall that separates in the Free City of Greyhawk the slum district and from the
Yeah.
okay.
Right from the Artisans' Quarter.
Yeah.
And
And on the west side of that, because that wall is broken, it has pierced by gates, so the western stub of that, you appear on top of that. In the old days, I don't know what it is like right now in Greyhawk, current time, but in the old days, there were guards stationed.
Yeah,
on
we
those
just gone back to the old days in
Yeah,
Greyhawk.
you'll-
we're good.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh.
Guard.
Shake and bake?
576, meaning older
Okay,
days. Yeah.
okay, yeah, but you would appear on top of that wall, and there
Yeah.
were guards there in the old days. So you better have a really good story as to how you got up on the wall and why he didn't notice you on his last stroll.
Yeah.
Where
Was
the
it-
hell did you come from?
Was it both ways, or are you stuck there and had to find another way back?
Yeah, there's a different way back.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the tricky bit. That gates can be one way, and so you get to the, which is kind of a really good gimmick or way for DMs to control your party. You get them there and then give them no way out. So yeah,
That is interesting.
but we have to mention Odd Alley.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
one
from the
that-
Gord books in the city
Yeah.
of Hawks. I don't think Odd Alley was mentioned in the first Saga of Old City.
No,
I
I
think
don't
it was something that Gary introduced in the second book about the city, Saga of Old City, that was published not by TSR but New Infinities. That was the fourth
Nippy.
book, I think. Of there was Sea of Death was the first one that was published by New Infinities. That is basically just the third edition or third part of the Gord saga, so to speak. But then later was the Saga of Old City that is interesting because Gary goes back to the original story of Gord in the city, but told from a different perspective. And that one has Gord's adventure, and then he goes deep into a lot of the stuff that is only, meaning the first book, it's more like a straight normal adventure for Gord, but here's a lot in the Saga of Old City. You hear a lot of what actually happened, and then you have Odd Alley, that is this little weird twisty place. I think it's in the foreign quarters, if I remember correctly.
It's in a 4-quarter Old City.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's Old City,
Yeah,
actually.
and you go around in and this little maze of little twisty alleys. And there's various things leading to, or portals and stuff leading to all sorts of odd places. And so that is something worth mentioning. And I think the whole idea with that was probably, as a DM, you should develop whatever little peculiar little place in Odd Alley that suits your campaign, so to speak. It's more like a place in Greyhawk you can use for your own purposes to go places and stuff like that.
Yeah, Waterdeep had Jade Alley,
Uh-huh.
which was
Yeah.
different. It was a mini dungeon and it was all magical. And everybody knows where it is, and it's kept in operation by the Mass Lords because it takes care of all the weirdos.
Yeah.
They go in there and they don't usually come out. Now, if you need to access the gate in Jade Alley, there is a point in Jade Alley where you will find yourself in a ballroom. And in that ballroom, undead, as in the skeletons of people magically held together, some of them still in magnificent ball gowns, are waltzing with each other endlessly, silently, as pieces of the skeletons fall off through use. And you have to waltz your way through them, or rather not touch any of them, work your way through to get to the far end. And yes, there is a gate there.
It sounds very Shining-like almost.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
No, I never heard that before.
What, shining like?
Yeah,
As
yeah,
in,
on the
hi
Shining.
honey, I'm home!
Well, yeah, like, 'cause, you know, all
Yeah.
the spirits are all there, you know,
Mhm.
still. It's just, yeah, it's really cool. I never had heard that one before.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
awesome.
published. That's
really
out
cool.
there.
Yeah. We have another one from Greyhawk that might not be a portal, but might be close to it, and that's the Malachite throne that is in Rossi's. That was cut out from. It was taken. Let's see, from Seabairn's Asperdy Isle, I think.
Asperdy Isle,
Yeah,
yeah.
Asperdy Isle. That was taken from there, and it has a malachite. I always have it like malachite is normally green, but I have it like it's a special kind of black malachite that they took and used it from, and that one has properties and. The nail axis kind of turned it into a tool. Was turned into a tool. I have it for Asmodeus and the hells, so to speak, and because they connected to it, that used to curse the whole nation and send it to the whole empire and stuff. So that is in one way. The way I want to portray it is like the whole throne room is a kind of a gate, so to speak, because it's a room that appears in many different dimensions. In that sense, it can be both up here and down there. So you can influence, and the people that goes into it, they have to make a saving throw, and then if you lose it, then there's if the Ivid, the Overking, if he wants you to keep you there, he will, and if you fail the save, then it's too late. There is no way out for you, so to speak. So and you aware of it, then you're doomed. Then you're made to be there. So if you make the save, then you know, okay, I can run out, so to speak. But and then
See why I don't use the right side of the map.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So
I understand.
I use that as a gimmick, so to speak, for a smaller version, because that mechanic was kind of, a lot of rulers wanted that. Was kind of cool. That way I can make sure that I can teleport someone else, or if these pesky people come and threaten me when I'm sitting and I'm having a court, then you become way more powerful. So I have it that Crandon in Eldevon, he Prince Crandon, he has another version of it that is not tied to the hells, but he experimented with. So he has a similar type of thing in his throne room that is kind of a protection. So if you go there, then you have to make a save, and if you fail that save, then you're in his clutches, so to speak. But on the other hand, he's not an evil ruler, but he will use it against you if you're a problem for him, so to speak. So that was kind of a mechanic that you can then twist into cool things with it. So it's like the whole room is an artifact. So that was one way that also have portal functions if need be, because it can make the person sitting in the throne be instantly whisked away somewhere if need be. So that was one of the things that I also put a saving throw that you make preemptively, so to speak. So you failed it and then you're screwed. So yeah. So that was part of the mechanics. But yeah.
And I have another sort of gate that was left out of the published realms for decency reasons. No, because Scott Herring didn't like it, and he happened to do Kalimshan in our first series of realms source books, regional source books. The Sil Pasha, the ruler of Kalimshan, if he considered you were too powerful or a political difficulty for him, and you happen to be inclined to romantic liaisons with females, regardless of who or what you were, he would gift you one of his concubines for the night, a particular concubine, and when you got into her embraces, she was a gate. She wasn't a person, she was gay. She would act like a person until that moment, but the moment she folded her arms around you, foomp, you were somewhere else. And what the Sil Pasha used this for was to take his rivals, nobles who were too powerful, the satraps who were like threatening him, or whom he believed were preparing a coup, like gathering military force or whatever to get rid of him, and just use his concubine to teleport you to the middle of Roran, the plains of purple dust. Roran is a dust desert, and it stretches for hundreds of miles. No matter where you are dumped in Roran, you have to trudge without water for about 100 miles to get out of the place. And Roran is halfway across the continent of Faerun from Kalimshan. So it's highly unlikely that the Silpasha will ever see you again.
That was in, when you mentioned that dust, that mentioned, could there be dust gates between
Oh,
Sea
yeah.
of Dust and
Yeah.
and that part of the realm? Sounds interesting. That's
Yeah.
another
'Cause-
meaning, yeah, it's like the travel through the elemental planes. Meaning, if you go to the elemental plane of fire, could that be a common one between the settings or something, or the outer planes? Or
Yeah, yeah,
So is she a sentient portal?
yes.
Does she have a name?
Oh, yeah.
The concubine. Yes, she has a real name, but the Silpasha didn't want anyone to learn it because once you could name her to her face, you control her. And he didn't want his own gate used against him, or he didn't want somebody to take his concubine away and use the concubine as a weapon on others, perhaps him. So you never got to know her name, which was, don't listen, this is just between you and us. Silfarine. Okay, so if you could say her name to her, you could control her. And yes, there are dust gates because, as it happens, while I was developing that part of the realms,
Yeah.
Arthur C. Clarke published a novel called The Fall of Moondust, which is all about a shuttle on the moon losing power and then sinking in a dust sea to the bottom, and how do we rescue all the people before their air and water runs out. And they cook to death in their own heat because the dust keeps the heat in. So yeah, I was thinking about stuff like that because of what I was reading.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you want to look into the Sea of Dust, then there is the Sea of Death, the third book in the Gord series. That is, I think, the best depiction of the Sea of Dust in fiction that Gary wrote, which it's kind of extensive travel across it and going under and see these albino that are the leftover Suul that live in the down in the underground there, and yeah, so there's you have a lot of twists with clones, and that's when Gary started leaving Greyhawk for going out in the multiverse, so to speak. But it's also some of the best depictions of the court of Grasset, and that I think is really, really cool, because it's a cool study of tyranny and stuff that can be useful if you want villains and stuff. So yeah.
Do we have any well-known adventurers or parties of characters and specifically that you know that have Forgotten Realms travelers that go into Greyhawk, or vice versa?
Yeah, do we have any? That's a good one. Yeah.
There's adventuring bands from the past,
Okay.
like from the 1275 up to the 1290 era. So 50 years before the original Old Grey Box of the Realms was set, we have adventuring bands who went looking for other worlds and never came back. But we don't have any chronicled adventures of them reaching Greyhawk. In most cases, from the point of view of people in the realms, we don't know where they went.
Okay.
They just were never heard from again. And that was deliberate because I did not want to link things. This is
Sure.
yeah, this is,
Pre-published.
yeah. So I do know that early on, Jake was still editor of Dragon, and he just hired Kim as his sub-editor. So the Gen Cons of the day were being held at Wisconsin Parkside outside Kenosha.
Okay.
That there were things from the realms, swords, daggers, stuff like that, being found in Greyhawk, as in being traded back and forth in Greyhawk. In some cases, they were the really finely made daggers and swords of nobility that had the badge of the noble house inscribed on the pommel or on the blade just above the quillets, and it would be, where did this come from? I do not know that device. But if you were from the realms, you went, how the hell did that get here? You know, so obviously they were carried by somebody, but
So we always, when it comes to campaign play, I always use a lot of Ed spells against. So, right. So a reasonable excuse of how the spells got from Forgotten Realms to Greyhawk. Right? We know
Sure.
Mordenkainen.
Oh, yeah, Mordenkainen and Elminster and several of the others, they bop back and forth all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you could be, anybody in the Circle of Eight is of power level enough to easily travel if they're interested and if they
Okay.
bother to learn how. I would say Odaluk, for instance, probably did travel in a limited way. I want to go to this place. I want to look in that library like Candlekeep in the Realms.
Right. That's
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to go lay waste to the realms. I don't want to go sightseeing. I don't need to eat in the finest restaurants and taste the finest flesh pots. I've got that here at home. I want to go and see this library because it might have this, this, and this in it.
Right. Okay. Makes total sense.
Do we want to leave any time for questions? This
Oh
is the
yeah,
question.
definitely.
Oh, I think. Well, we're 2 hours on this one. Aren't
Oh,
we?
good.
We're on
Are
2
we?
hours on this one.
Are
we
we?
2
Good.
hours? Okay, good.
I think we are. Is that
Okay.
what- yeah.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Then we've got.
All right. So while we open up some questions, because I got another one I want to talk about
Yeah.
after that. Yeah. What questions does anyone have up to this point, or it could be general Forgotten Realms questions, Grail questions as well.
Is the Wander in Blackmore in Forgotten Realms?
Oh, that's a good.
Or
Or
is that just in
Hey.
Vistara?
The Wander Inn is in the realms. And if you're looking for it, you go to the Vast and you ride for a day out of Surlegal, like going north. You'd be crazy to go in any other direction for a day to Surlegal. You go north into the Vast and you will come to the Wander Inn as a roadside inn. And yes, it is the same Wander Inn.
Well, that's good question there, Will.
yeah. Great one.
If you have questions, we have answers.
Yes, please.
I have a bit. I think this is a bit more of a general DMing question, but I guess I'm a bit concerned. How do I keep like a campaign or story feel focused when my players are starting out in Forgotten Realms, which has as many countries and continents and even a bunch of stuff off the planet, and then having them go to Greyhawk, which is an entirely different planet with cities and countries and off-planet stuff.
Why did your player characters get together in the first place? Are they bored? Do they want to get rich? Or did they have a purpose to go adventuring? If they had a purpose to go adventuring, pursue that purpose and lead where it takes you. Hopefully with some urgency. Like there's a time limit, or there's something, if you don't get this by next year, the turn of next year, your father gets it. Or you lose the farm, the family loses the farm, or the king will come looking, and whatever. So give them a purpose to do all of this travel, which also adds with it the frustration of, look at that castle over there. Oh, no, we don't have time. We have to get the sacred ring. You can look on the castle in your own time. Come on! And you do that to them for the next 3 or 4 years. In fact, you should do it to them until they feel they've fulfilled their primary purpose. And you look at their character sheets and say, they can maybe survive for 5 minutes doing something else. So yeah, give them a real world, in character, close to the chest, matters to them purpose. And then you have your focus. Because you can break the focus, and in the early editions of the game, we had to break focus to train, to go up a level. When we reached it, we were pinned with our experience points. I've got to find a tutor. Oh, yeah, we can't afford that. Look, I've got to find a tutor. Look, if you let me go up a level, I'll be able to cast Fireball. Oh, all right. Everybody find something to do for 3 weeks while he gets trained.
I'm curious about when portals get locked magically by a dimensional anchor or other spell like that. Have you ever detailed how that occurs?
The most common way of locking a portal is that you remove its activation. So it's like a door on the wall that's locked. You can't get through it. You can't pick it. You can break it down, but in the case of a gate, you're destroying the gate. You're breaking it down. In the case of a door, you're destroying the door, but you can get through into the next room because the door is filling a hole. It's different for a gate. That's the most common way. The nastier way is it still functions. It just goes where you would never want to be.
Yeah.
As in, the gate no longer takes you from the realms to Greyhawk. The gate now takes you to the bottom of the cesspool in this same castle. Happy swimming.
Wow.
Tying into that, meaning how detectable or how hideable are portals? Meaning, are they easy to detect? Do they have to be obvious, or can they be hidden? And in that case, can they be secretly detected by radiating magic or something like that? Meaning,
And
yeah.
the difference that's an it depends answer.
Yeah, yeah, sure,
It depends
yeah.
on the portal. If you are in Morris's Wood Between the Worlds, the whole landscape is magical.
Yeah.
Everything is magical, and the place is riddled with portals like Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
But there is
It's
always
like going to Daraka, everything's
Yeah.
taints evil taints. So you.
But
it's-
every portal, no matter what its nature is, has two levels of magic radiating from it.
Yeah.
The background, it always radiates this much, and when it's operating, when it's open,
then it becomes much more powerful.
It's
yeah.
it's like turning a very bright flashlight on in a
Yeah.
dark room. That's the difference in detectability.
Yeah.
Now the question is, if you know that, and you are either constructing the portal, or you came along later, and you are guarding the portal, you hide the portal. For instance, if the portal is in my bedroom, I hang a magical painting over it, which radiates its own magic. And
Yep.
then on either side of it, I put two burnished sheets of reflective metal. So I have floor to ceiling mirrors, so I can get dressed in the morning and know I'm at my best. And they carry enchantments to keep them from tarnishing and to keep them bright and mirrored. So the whole wall is now radiating magic, but different magics in layers. And then you can go on embellishing like
You have
that.
to
with
search twice in
spotlights.
order to find what
Yeah.
it actually is.
Yeah, maybe I want those spotlights, in order to preen before
Yeah.
my mirror. So I put two tiny glowing globes up there,
Yeah.
and I cage them there with yet another spell. So now we've got like 4 or 5 layers of spell, and that's how you. Now, that doesn't mean if I move the painting and use the gate, that doesn't mean that somebody who is 3 rooms away detecting won't notice, hey, something's happening, there's a huge power surge. The same for all the Star Trek movies. We're getting a power surge in Sector 3. Because I'm now using the gate. But if I have something to put the painting back, either it's...
Yeah, that's one of the problems. You have to have an assistant, or otherwise it's hard to reach back
Yeah.
and close the doors.
Or the painting is on a slightly slanted track and is weighted on its back with something as simple as ball
it's like
bearings.
a door thing, a
So
thing
it
that
will-
closes the door automatically.
Yeah.
But another aspect, now that was detectability. Another aspect is size, meaning we have the classical little portal that is a door or a mirror or something. But we can think, what about the enchanted forest? That the whole forest is a portal to the Fey realm or something like that. You can a volcano a mile wide is an opening to the plane of fire or something like that. Meaning portals can have huge dimensions. You can have meaning the whole tracts of land can be a portal, and they don't necessarily be all the time. It can be certain times of the year, or
sure.
when the moon shines, or something like that. So you have that. It was another way of locking it in. So
Or like a storm, like
yeah,
Ghost Tower.
there might be
Inverness,
exactly. It might
which
be every time there's certain weather
Yep.
or something like
Yep.
that. Yeah,
Oh yeah, when
Yeah.
if you go through Morris's Wood Between the Worlds,
yeah,
there are little ponds, puddles, with a rock in the middle.
yeah.
And if you step off the rock, if you jump onto the rock and then step off the rock in a particular direction, your next step is somewhere else. If you misjudge it, you just go ploosh into the pond. between two trees
Yeah.
is a gate. Just step between them, but it better be in moonlight.
Yeah.
Because if you aren't in moonlight, you just reach the other side of the two trees.
Yeah.
If you're in moonlight, your next step is in another world.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, I used in my campaign in Celine, they have the moon arc that is like a huge stone arc, and that opens each festival. It opens during the festival when the Celine is full and you stand in a certain location and you see Celine on the other side. That's when it opens, and it's built as a natural thing, and it only works 4 times a year. So
And
that-
then there was something in Waterdeep about that.
Yeah.
The temple of Saloon, the goddess of the moon, there is a priestess called the Moon Gate. And the trick is, she's the gate.
yeah.
And it doesn't
Is
mean...
that part of the profession? So every time you get
Yeah.
you ascend to that position, you have to
all-
learn that.
You
or
have to
get
learn that.
expect-
And
yeah.
all you can do by using the Moon Gate is to go to the next temple of Saloon in the circuit.
Uh-huh.
So it's used by clergy to quick get a message.
Yeah.
Because one of the things temples do in the Forgotten Realms to earn money is they act as Canada Post or
Yeah.
the USPS.
Yeah,
They also act as a parcel, FedEx.
Yeah.
Because if you need to get a deed or a key or something small and portable but very valuable, you entrust it to the temple and pay a fee.
Yeah.
And they don't go all the way to your destination unless it's in the same city. They go to the next temple.
Yeah.
And then it gets taken to the next temple,
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah.
But what the Moon Gate does is take a trusted clergy or a trusted lay follower, and the lay follower is usually a warrior of some formidable whatever, or has weapons and so on, will not be messed with.
Yeah.
And she goes to the right place in the temple, puts her hand on his shoulder and speaks the word, and foom, he's in the next temple in the same room where there is a temple guard going, "Oh, hi, you're my 8 o'clock." You know?
But and that also ties into the thing, meaning how common should this be or could this be before it goes out of hand? Meaning we have that,
that's exactly
the
my
level of magic, meaning
Right.
that depends on the playstyle. Sometimes we
Yeah.
want goofy things that magic is everywhere and you teleport bread to the next city rather than baking it or whatever. So and you have transportation services that run, or you can have it very scarce. It's only a few in the world and hardly anyone knows it is a dying art or something. So and that is the meaning you can dial it up or down. It can be that unique thing that is left over from some ancients who knew about it, or it can be a common thing and it's everywhere and every other character knows a thing or two
Yeah.
about it. So yeah.
Yeah, years and years ago, Lynn Carter was researching the various Barsoom-like, not just Burroughs, but Otis Adelbert Klein and a lot of his competitors, and their various Sword and Planet
Yeah.
books. And one of them, and I'm trying to remember the name now and it's escaping me, the guy only published 2 or 3 novels and a few short stories in Weird Tales back in the day. And he had a gate to another world. And the Earthman who gets plunged into this Mars-like planet and has all these fantasy adventures, he just wants to go home. Because he was taken there, he told his wife he'd go into town and get the mail and get the bread and get the eggs she needed and he'd be back for dinner. And he's gone. And it's months. And he knows she's going to be worried sick. And he's the breadwinner. She can keep subsistence farming on the farm, but she can't pay the taxes, she can't do anything without. So he's got to get home, and he misses her a lot. He wants to get home. And when you're reading the book, you're going, "Oh, this is this cool stuff, all these spells and dragons and stuff." No, I want to go home to my farm in Kansas, sort of thing. And he's talking to the people he becomes a comrade of and fights with and travels with, and one of them says, "There is a way. Perhaps you are the one." And he goes, "The one," thinking it's some chosen destiny. No, there's a legend on that planet that someone will come from away, an outlander, and they will be important in the future. So it is important to help them. And this belief, there's nothing more to the belief.
Yeah.
But the companion, whose life he saves several times during all of fighting in the book, says, yes, I am convinced you're the one. This is the way. And he grabs the guy by the throat, and he thinks he's being strangled by this guy, and this guy plunges his dagger into his own heart and sacrifices himself. That's how you open the gate. It takes a human life. And that's how the book ends. He's covered with this guy's blood. He's lost this newfound friend. He's like, oh my God, and he's back on his farm. And his wife is going, where have you been? You know, and the book ends.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. yeah, I want the sequel,
Yeah.
which he never wrote.
Let's say.
Yeah, yeah.
But from these kind of extreme cool examples, we have in D&D terms, everyday things. We have like the backpack that can hold a lot of stuff. We have a portable holes. We have the tiny huts. We have the magnificent mansions, the ones you can just climb in and take. Meaning these little demi-planes that or extra dimensional spaces and stuff that have holes in it, that have been a main trope of D&D since the early days, so to speak. And that's another interest, but when it's not a gate to another place, but it's still a portal into something useful, or just like a sack of something or whatever.
And notice how
Yeah.
they've been very careful in every edition of the rules to not allow you to daisy chain them. Or
Exactly.
put
That's
one
if you
inside
put one
the
into
Right.
the other,
Yeah,
then
right.
it goes boom or something. So yeah. So there's exactly. I think that there was probably a lot of D&D physics discussion when these things were written and made up, so to speak, and so on. But that's another aspect of like everyday portal use by parties and
Yeah,
stuff.
physics is a bitch.
Yeah.
If you want to see a graphic, watch the episode of Red Dwarf, in which everything goes backwards,
Yeah, it's good.
and the cat goes off into the bushes to take a poo, and then everything gets reversed, and you see him going. As it all goes back.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it's always what happens if you stuff someone in there. Do they suffocate or age properly, or is it the way to how do you detect it? Can you and all sorts of stuffs that way.
So, I have a question. Would time work different between the two given relativity?
That's a good one.
We know from published things that it does, but we also know the variance is not great. It is a matter of time zones differential, not months, years. It's not what the children experienced in Narnia when they come back in Prince Caspian after The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and they realize they're looking at the ruins of their kingdom. And there are legends of these ruling kings and queens who died long ago, and the palace is overgrown. And they suddenly, is this our palace? And they prove it to themselves by looking down a now dry well, and a chess piece that one of them dropped accidentally into the well is lying down there, and they go, oh my God. So, no, but we don't have that among the TSR/WotC D&D worlds, because the time moves at a slightly different pace, but not enough to be dramatic. Just enough to cover that was last night, screw up.
And I made a Flanny's time zone map, because some of the things we normally realize we don't. If you travel from one end of the setting to the other, people just often you just assume it's the same time. But I wanted to if we travel there, I wanted to see what is the time difference. So I made a time zone map. I'm going to publish it soon, and so you can actually see how many hours difference between Divers and Rossies.
But are they just the sun hour, or is it observed?
That's the thing, yeah. But I simply meaning most real world countries, they didn't observe. They had local time up until you had things like trains or something that moved fast enough that it became an issue. When everybody was walking or using a horse travel, you could have local time zones everywhere. And normally meaning accurate timekeeping was something that was only possible in medieval times with huge clocks and stuff, and then that was like computers, it miniaturized more and more, so it was
But
later.
even if you look
yeah.
at an early time zone map
Yeah.
of the United States, this thing that should be sort of like
Oh yeah, you didn't have
it
hourly.
goes like this
Oh,
because
oh,
they
yes.
voted. You know,
Yeah.
we want to be the same time as that place
Yeah,
over there.
yeah.
So the line does this.
And in Europe, most countries they had different time zones for every city had time zones, and was usually tied in Sweden. It was tied to the big churches because they were the ones that had a clock.
Ding.
So in the beginning, it
Oh.
was a time zone for this parish because they had a church, and then that parish had a. So each was concentrated, and they used the church bell to signal the different times, and then it evolved with technology. So the more clocks you can install, then they looked at the sun going up, and then the sun is in the middle. So that became the local time. And then when the trains started going faster, that's when you start thinking about centralized time and standardized time. And in a fantasy world, you can start, but will there be a use for meaning, are there magic that needs to be like big spells that need to be cast at a six?
I
Whatever.
want to, let me delve into this time thing
Yeah.
here, because I want to talk about a little bit greater times, because time
Medieval times?
travel.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a
That's
group,
another portal.
I have a group called the Portal Masters, very secretive in my game. Not a lot of people know things about them. I wish Courtney was here, Coco. She was on this one adventure. There's a ruin keep in the Lore Mills. This is my prelude up to the Hateful Worst 24-hour scenarios I did, because they occur from years 490 to 505, and everyone's in 576 or future, and I'm in 600 or whatever. So it's way in the future, in the past. They're to keep someone. There's creatures in the keep, but as they're fighting the creatures in the keep, someone finds this device, accidentally sets it off, sets a portal. Through the portal, fly 2 Dracoliches that were fighting at the keep.
Wasn't one enough?
No,
Too tough?
never enough. Fighting, they're already damaged. They're fighting at the keep though during the Hateful Wars, and they flew into the present time. Okay, you like that?
Yes.
I know you would. So my question is, and then from that, kind of that linked them into something's going on there, right after they fought and all. Like, wow, this is an important place in the past. So when we did the past episodes, remember we used all ancestors. So you have a character in our campaign. You're going to use your great grandmother, or if it's an elf, maybe just one generation, right? Of characters, so everyone's playing
When
relatives.
2 Dracoliches love each other.
Yeah,
very,
I'm
very-
talking.
Exactly.
I'm saying that was an
Yeah.
example. The 2 Dracoliches,
You see,
they got caught in it,
Yeah, that
right, which
was
was
the
kind of funny,
exceptional
right?
thing
So
that happened. Yeah.
all this tied up when we ran the adventures in 490 to 505. That one 24. I remember running 24-hour stream again. By the way, it was insane.
You should have seen him
video
with his
game
buddies.
streamers is
I
one thing,
tuned
but
in when they had streamed for
Oh
like
my God.
22 hours or something,
I
and,
was
and they were
punched
sitting
drunk.
there like zombies
Yeah, I
staring
was
at
punched.
each other.
I
It
was
funny.
punched drunk.
Yeah.
But the third group, and the point I'm trying to make is how you can work time without really making it sound really corny or ridiculous. I like the third group of adventures so much, and they did in year 505. I didn't want to waste those characters. How do I get them in the future? So that was my trick. They all got caught in a mirror of life trap and weren't released until the present.
And we did this in the realms
You did, okay.
because of
right.
all of the authors
Okay.
who wanted to save characters
Right.
from the 100-year time jump.
Got it.
And Bob had them, the Companions of the Hall were reborn in their descendants. I saved Mert and some others in and Volo, another, in Blue Flame items. They got trapped in the item.
Okay.
And the item is a prison for a certain number of people. But if you put somebody new in, and it's already at capacity, it spits somebody out.
Okay.
So that's how they got out. So yeah, we had to. This was a metagame thing of various authors trying to rescue the idiot move on the part of the company.
Right, okay.
Because, as Bob put it, by sacrificing these characters, because only Drizzt and Daria had the lifespans to
Right.
go over the time jump. Everybody else would die off.
Well, Lichdom is a form of time travel anyway.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
You can
here we
linger
go.
on, yeah, or ghost.
That's
whatever.
another panel.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, the cheating death.
Yep.
Through and Bob's said to the company, "You're killing the goose that lays the golden eggs.
Yeah.
You know, we have to return this to so we can write some more of this." And he found his way. And if you read the Sundering saga,
Yeah.
the first book of the Sundering is him bringing the companions the whole back. And I used the Blue Flame because I didn't have time, as in I didn't have a book that I could use on that. So I wanted to tell other stories because all of our contracts were winding down, so we knew we had only so many novels left, and I didn't want to blow one on that. You know, I had other stories to try and tell.
Okay, so what I did wasn't completely ridiculous then.
No, it's
No,
good.
that sort of thing happened. No,
And I like
but what,
the idea of two Dracoliches.
what you have to
Thank
do
you.
is
Yeah.
what you have to do is avoid going back in time
Right.
because of the old paradox of
Right.
let's kill Hitler or let's kill your dad. Then did you ever
Right.
exist at all? Well, if you didn't exist at all, you couldn't have killed your dad. Oh, that's a paradox. I do not know how the paradox got in the time machine, and I did not hear them quacking, but I was told they were there.
So that was
That's
the
Spider Robinson.
and it was a fun exercise having. I went to every person who was playing, and I said to them, "Who do you want your relative to be, and what were they about, and how's that tie into the future?" And they got to play those characters. You know.
Jay,
Yeah.
if you're going to do that in future, I expect a line of romance novels. Because
Yes.
if so and so was my
Yes.
ancestor,
Yeah.
how did that happen?
Well, exactly.
Tell me the
we had,
story.
We had some of the initial connections were made in those adventures during then, because you know, Coco had a character and Korg had a character, and they each were actually grandparents of a future character, but they weren't the ones getting together, right?
It was the
Grandparents and
Dracoliches.
parents, just the Dracoliches.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I just want to make sure it was neat because it opened up other opportunities, and I'm like, I'm going to do more historical adventuring, which is a lot of. We talked about it in the Greyhawk discussion. I think it's a spot that people miss out on, and the way I don't know if I want to go with the time portals. But I did one that went into the future. That portal opened from the past into the future, not the other way back.
Right, so it's one way.
It went into the future.
That sort of chronomancy you can make work.
Okay.
It's when
You go-
people try and undo
Right.
things or meddle by going back in time and undoing things. That is very difficult for you to handle in a campaign
Right.
without making everything meaningless.
Yeah.
Without
Okay.
making all the strivings of
Yeah.
the adventurers not matter in the slightest, because somebody could go back at any time and undo it, and that never happened. And then why did you spend all those hours drinking pop and eating potato chips in somebody's basement to achieve nothing?
It was like the entire first season of Witchblade. At the end of that, do you remember that? And it was all gone. Even the movie was gone. Right? It's like what the.
And we do not wish those crushing disappointments on anyone.
Right.
So let's not do
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well then.
Do we have any questions
Ed
from the
approval.
online audience? too?
Let me
Anything?
see here. Yeah, we did because we'll put it in there too.
Oh,
so,
okay. See, there you go.
Yeah. So, everyone's asking how the con's going. Dragon here says, "Why save Volo?"
Oh,
Because Volo is somebody who makes everybody else feel good about themselves, because at least I'm not Volo. The porn movie thing was, why did Ron Jeremy have a career? Because every single guy could look at him and say, well, if he can get girls. Okay, it's the same thing.
I never would thought, in a million years, I would never put that analogy together.
There you
Okay.
go. Well, you see, but
Oh
that's
my
the thing.
gosh.
When you work in Hollywood, you hear stuff like that. But I mean, that's the thing. Volo is the unreliable narrator that we need for our times. Because if you use Elminster or Laeral or any of the seven as an unreliable narrator, they know too much. They should, because of their characters, be sharing more with the reader. So the player would learn stuff because Elminster couldn't not tell you that, and he knows it. Like, he's really her sister. He would say that, okay? Volo doesn't know, and Volo's been thrown out of more bars than you and I will ever go into. And so when he lands on his keister out in the street, he makes something up about the bar. He doesn't want to admit he admits in the Volo's guides when he was shut out of a kingdom or a city, because there's no other way to gild that lily. But if he was thrown out of a bar, he just sits in the street on his keister and makes up something about the bar and moves on. So that gives the DM elbow room. So that's why you say Volo. Besides saving Volo, it's a think of the children moment, because Volo is a child. And because,
Okay.
and you know, what was that Christian thing? God loves even the smallest germ, even the tiniest rattlesnake. Well, okay, that's Volo.
Okay. Yep.
Be careful what questions you ask me.
Yep.
Yeah, so Dragoneer says, when this is on YouTube, I'll share it with my players.
There you go.
Yes, yeah, so. Glass Jaws wasn't expecting a Ron Jeremy reference from Ed Greenwood. So, yes.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I mess around enough with portals just because they're cool, but like your question, I don't want to be bouncing around. I don't want to ever go to Sigil in my game, none of it, because you know what I mean? I just, place to place in Greyhawk is good. The time thing was a neat connection between what was going to happen in that to the present, past the present. And that's where.
But let's point at this leads to something else.
Yep.
What if these gates are ancient? We don't know how to make them now.
Right.
They were made by someone in the past. They were made for some purpose. We don't know what the purpose is. We use them for this other purpose, but our modern purpose, well, we don't know what they were originally
Right.
made for. What if they suddenly start to awaken in some sort of sequence? Obviously, some conjunction of events has happened.
Or be found, or lost, and now they're being found. That's kind of what I've been doing with
Okay.
these portal masters.
Well, no, but that's the
Right.
traditional way.
Right.
But what
Well,
if
you-
they start awakening on their own,
Okay.
and you're going, "What's going
good.
on?"
That's cool, too.
And then you have some. Or, what if, back to Philip Jose Farmer in the World of Tears, once you know that there are these gates, if you want to control an area or become very rich, you control the gates so you can control the travel. So you can become very rich, because if there's a shortage of something in place A, and you know you can get them cheap in place B, you can make a killing. And that could be like, what if it's desperate? What if there's, say, a COVID outbreak or a polio outbreak, whatever, and you have the antidote?
So now we will have a kind of gate tax collectors. That,
Yeah,
like
but
at
no,
city gates, they
not
will-
tax collectors, because they're not going to let anyone else use the gate. They're going to kill to protect the use of the gate.
there
They're
you go.
controlling,
Yep, mhm.
and then
Yep.
you find some gates and start using them,
Yeah.
and now you're on their hit list,
They're-
because nobody must know, and you must be eradicated.
Yeah. I was also thinking, do all types of creatures can go through all gates? But I can conceive of gates that, meaning we have, for instance, we have the summoning spells. That is also a form of gates and or like travel through some extra dimensional way to get there. That is also built into the game and often treated more like, well, it just functions, so to speak. I just call it summoning whatever, and the things just pop up, and you use them as your helps or your guardians or your assistants or whatever it is.
So
Or-
you put on the funny hat,
Yeah.
you dance naked backwards with your shins in your
Yeah.
bedroom in the pentagram, and Vincent Price says, "Really?" as he
Yeah.
appears behind you.
But to me, it's interesting that is treated as just a rudimentary, just happens, no questions asked kind of thing in the game. And then you have other forms of portals have keys, and there's such a big thing. But to me, that's a little bit weird, since the summoning seems to be both very powerful, easy access, and can happen anywhere without much further ado, so to speak. So, and so the interesting thing is, could you use just summonings like that? Could you, yeah, meaning, can that be used for other things than just bring in monster assistance or things that can add to your number of hit dice the enemy have to kill to get to you, so to speak? That's
Well,
it, yeah.
I could see a necromancer wanting spare parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Using it to get dead from a battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A whole bunch of yes.
Yeah.
I want to build toll gates.
There you go.
Ah,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So are these old-fashioned toll gates where there's actually a person in the booth that you have to render payment to?
Yeah.
That, or just you have to pay your pot of gold, put that in first, and then you can use the gate.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, we have a classic example of, was it Karen? What's the name in English? But the boatsman that takes them over to
Sean.
Charon.
yeah, Charon in Swedish. Then
Yeah.
takes the one, or they ask for magic items or whatever it was in Monster Manual 2 where it was depicted. I think that's really cool. That's
He
like
takes you across the Styx,
Yeah.
and if he doesn't like you, he
You forget
pulls,
about the trip.
He pulls the barge into the
Yeah,
River Leith, and
exactly.
you forget.
about the trip.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
no problem. So yeah.
So we got an offbeat Forgotten Realms question. We'll take this. If you could put a villain, transport that villain to Ravenloft, who would you do, Ed?
Well, that's happened already.
Okay, who is it?
There was a Gondogal, the Lost King,
Okay.
who started his own kingdom, rival kingdom to Cormyr in the early days. When they were creating Ravenloft, I got one of my phone calls from Jeff. Hey Ed, can you list, like, I don't know, 20 people, important people who disappeared from the realms?
Okay.
And I said, okay. And they said, could you write them all up with stats and like a page of each of their back history? So, okay. And I popped it into the FedEx envelope to go off to TSR, and they picked Gondogal. So he made it into the original
Okay.
Ravenloft thing, and the others went into limbo. And yeah, but
To this day, you don't know.
Well,
No, we
that's
don't-
easy to disappear forever in limbo. So.
yes,
my
yes.
gosh.
But yes, there are, and
Okay.
there are far more than just Gondogal. Because yeah, that became a thing. Now the question is, are they wandering and trapped in Ravenloft, or did they become Dark Lords and are trapped in their own domain? And there are Dark Lords who have gotten out of their own domains recently, so we know it can happen. But they have to transcend their own natures. It's sort of like Dante's Inferno as seen by Larry Niven and Jared Purnell when they did the thing. I don't want to ruin the book for anybody, but a writer dies, so of course he goes to the outermost circle of hell, because writers do, and he meets a spirit guide, Benito Mussolini,
Oh God.
who takes him on a tour of the hells, deeper and deeper, and it's Dante's 9 circles of hell.
Yeah.
I won't ruin the book by saying what happens, but there is a way out of hell. It involves a sacrifice. It involves knowing
okay.
yourself, and it can be
Okay.
heavy. So heavy. Yeah, you know, so there, people can come out of Ravenloft, but there are a lot of important people from the realms who've ended up in Ravenloft.
All right, cool. What other questions do you have out there? Give me general.
Oh,
Yes.
Here's a hypothetical. If you were to link Undermountain to Castle Greyhawk, the two dungeons, where would you put that in Undermountain?
That's a good one.
Yeah, I like that question.
okay.
Greyhawk.
The lower levels of Undermountain have only ever been covered in one official product, the Undermountain Adventures 4th edition product, the book. Undermountain has 9 main levels and 28 sublevels, and one of the sublevels has a hall of mirrors, and all of the mirrors are moving pictures. They're all magical gates, and they lead you into Castle Amber, as in
X2?
no.
Oh.
Not that.
Oh.
Rogers Lasney's.
Okay.
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 So, the castle in Amber, the one true city.
Okay.
By Roger's agreement and permission, Roger and I were friends. We were going to do a panel at Gen Con in 2005, but he died before
Oh, wow.
Gen Con came along. Anyway, if you step through the right painting, you are in Castle Greyhawk. In particular, you are in a garderobe or privy in Castle Greyhawk that has a very comfortable throne. So on one wall is this moving painting, and on the other wall, just above the pile, because they don't use rolls of toilet paper, they usually use boxes of leaves, but in a castle, you use boxes of fine linens. They're sort of like tea towels, and some poor servant has to wash them all afterwards. And then above them is a row of bookshelves going all the way up. So there was great reading material. And you'd sit on the throne reading, and
Who
it'd be
knew
agreed
they
upon.
actually take care of toilet reading?
Yeah, toilet
fancy
reading,
world?
you
That's,
bet,
that's
we do.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Where they use the 3 seashells.
And then,
Oh, God.
then through the gate would come somebody, and he'd say, you're finally here. Here, chapter 3 is pretty good. And get up and go back to the painting the other way. There you go.
Excellent.
It's not the answer you wanted, but
Hey,
Yep.
it's a connection.
Yep.
Any other questions? We bounced around a bit here, but you know,
Yeah.
we always have these fun discussions.
oh,
Yes, sir.
there is the Great Worm, and an adventure that Gary made up as a joke, and because I was joking at a gaming table about down the elementary canal with gun and camera, you know, and it was going to be the British explorers and so on, and he said, down the dragon's digestive tract with gun and camera.
Uh-oh.
So, and he posited you get to the bottom of the dragon, you don't get dissolved in its stomach, and you don't get pooed out the rear end. You cut your way out, and it's a gate to somewhere else. Because as the dragon dies, you get whisked to another plane.
Wow.
Yeah, that was his way of cheating you out of the XP for killing the dragon. I'm serious.
I don't doubt that.
Oh,
Wow.
God. Yep.
That's another story I've never heard. Wow.
I'm older than dirt, Jay.
Oh my gosh, that's great though. I seriously never heard that one. Let's see. So much of graph being redone forever. It's Glass shows. I don't know if that's the case. With so much of graph being redone into the Forgotten Realms now, what's your feeling on that? No, it's really not, right? That's just a couple.
What?
He said, with so much of Greyhawk being redone into the Forgotten Realms now.
No.
Yeah. I don't think
About all they've done is take artifacts, magic items,
Yeah.
and traveling individuals like Vecna.
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't that Vecna relocated.
Right.
It's that he moves around through the plains anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Mordenkainen, when he was mentally injured and vulnerable to his rivals and enemies at home, his recuperation was in the realms, in the hands of Elminster and Storm and others of the Seven to look after him, until he was well enough to return to Greyhawk. And he returned to Greyhawk. He didn't want to stay in the realms. What he managed to find was a luxury vacation in a convalescent home.
Okay. So Varl just asked, I'm surprised Waterdeep was attacked in a Threat from the Sea series.
So was I. And so were all the people in Waterdeep. They weren't expecting that.
Right, okay.
Squish the fish.
All right, so that, all right, yeah. He says, what is it, what did you think of that? You're surprised too, or?
Well, okay. I had to canonize it, so Elaine and I wrote about it in the opening chapters of City of Splendors,
Okay.
our collaborative novel. When I read about it, it was like, what? But the harbor is the land of the merfolk. They're not going to roll over and die. They're going to fight to the last Hershey. And, you know, that's the stupidest place to assault. They should take a port next door, like Port Last, which is like 4 people in a fishing boat.
Right.
You know, and take it. But no, for dramatic purposes, for cinematic purposes, we had to attack Waterdeep. You know, so what did I think of it? The idea of the Threat from the Sea was great. The
Application.
execution,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, because
Okay.
I would have made Iakovas, the big baddie in that, far more mysterious and far more powerful and far more patient for a long-term plan. And this was the culmination. Okay, this is when we make the big assault. And then we see what happens, we pull back, we wait for them to start rebuilding, and then we hit them while they're rebuilding, and we take all their stuff that they're using to rebuild. I was thinking of it, and by the way, this is a common failing amongst designers. They do things like put a dragon in a fight with the player characters where the dragon has to fight the player characters to the last person and die on the spot. Dragon's never going to do that. He's going to fly away. And then he's going to do a flyby
And
attack.
don't put them in dungeons and
Yeah,
stuff. I mean,
yeah.
their biggest asset is
Yeah.
their ability to
Yeah.
strike and then disappear.
You strike,
and
fly away.
in one go.
Strike, fly away.
Yeah.
And the poor player characters don't know what.
Well,
You know.
that's why my players in the campaign I played earlier, they were terrified of going out in the open because I had a dragon. He just snatched one of them, flew away up in a mile, and dropped them, and then came back and took the next
Splat.
one, and they was like a mile to the nearest forest, so they were running for their lives, and they realized that yeah. So you can do cool, and there was third edition, so there was snatch attacks, so you can just grab them, and they rolled good, and so that was it. So. And then toast the first one, and then fly around, take another one, and grab one and throw them somewhere. And then they were like, they didn't have the chance. And that's how I think you should run the dragon attack. And you take
Oh,
out
it's
the
4
bunch
o'clock.
of the
I
other
need
ones.
an adventure for a snack.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And they so they realized that next time we have to travel in the forest because that will at least give us some protection. And then the red dragon simply burned down all the forest around its lair, so as a way of making sure that pesky adventurers couldn't hide among the trees, which I think makes sense. That's why in war zones and stuff, you clear forests and stuff. They can be an obstacle or limit your vision or anything like that. So yeah.
Any other questions?
Technology is wonderful.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm actually getting work calls now. I'm like, I gotta
Oh,
kidding me.
dear.
I know. It's
Jay.
4:30 to Friday where I live
Yeah.
on the East Coast, and people are sending me work calls.
Yeah.
No. There's this new thing in the United States. You sign an executive order, and you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Then you need to level up.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
people don't understand the passion for D&D.
No,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
people do it at convention. That's why it's wonderful to come to convention because people share the passion for playing and immerse yourself in fantasy worlds and discuss weird things like portals and stuff that doesn't exist. It's amazing. Yeah.
So we just love talking about different. I really like this discussion because I learned some things I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And you gave the A-OK for something crazy I did, which was cool, Ed. So I appreciate that.
Yep.
But,
Jay, you are fine to do everything crazy. I hereby give you permission to do all the crazy stuff.
you shouldn't say that for the adventure we're running tomorrow.
Yeah, I know that.
So,
I
yes.
realize I'm handing myself bound to the enemy. I get it.
Yeah. So tomorrow 9 a.m. in the Chop House. If you're walking by, just stop in. We'll be in the corner. Yep, and Ed and his crew will be there.
I will be weeping.
So, if you don't know Ed's character, Ravalantar, we have a class called the Greyhawk Mage. It's a really cool class. My buddy Alan actually came up with the concept and then developed on it. They're specific. Remember the original Jim Moore book of all these named spells that came out in first edition? We're like, we got to utilize this, and we've created a lot since then. They are specific mages that work under a Circle of 8 member or someone with a lot of named spells like Leomans. Ravalantar is Adaluk. Well, Adaluk's been dead, so it's actually the Dark Elven librarian Jawal, sever name he's under. But Adaluk has a lot of enemies. And now Ravalantar is 9th level and getting more power, and his group's
They're not
getting.
my enemies.
Well, technically,
I'm sweet and
so we're gonna see what's
beautiful.
gonna happen tomorrow in that adventure. So, right?
I don't know why you'd want to get up at 9 a.m. to watch me grovel.
No.
You can watch me grovel at any
Yeah.
time of the day.
But just Ed is it's a lot of fun playing with that crossover feel to it. So that's why I'm really appreciative of taking your time out for this discussion too.
No problem.
Sure.
Yeah.
But there's stuff about Gates we haven't covered yet. Yes.
What are you playing? What's the tomorrow?
So it's called the Deadly Challenge. So someone has my free city of Altamira, which is in the county, technically in the county unit, but it's a free city where they venture out of. Ed's group is called 2 Drink Minimum. So we have some of a logo. You'll see me with a logo
Yes.
shirt with it. It
I
has
will
the
wear
2
my shirt.
Yes, the 2 drinks on it. So and there'll be a lot of the core players will be there, and then we have some open sign-ups that signed up through TTE. So everyone gets a chance to play with Ed.
And Darling.
Yeah, Darling's in. Darling's in.
Yeah.
Darling's in. Eric Menge's in. Tony Winslow Brill.
What system are you playing?
Oh, I play old school 1E2E. Yes. Yeah.
Tomorrow's 2
1E2E. It's a lot of old customizations. Yes.
1.J.
Well, yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's going to be.
And we're all gonna die.
Yeah, you say that every time. You say that every time, but it never really happens. You guys do very well. But someone thinks that Avalanche's getting a little too big for his britches there, so we're gonna see. I mean, you can extrapolate who Ottaluke's enemies are, or have been, or are now. I mean, that's pretty
Well,
obvious.
somebody killed him. Jay.
Yes, someone
Your,
did kill
your,
him.
your innocent look needs work.
We might as well make something good out of that publication, right?
Yes.
It came out, yes. Yeah. So it'll be a blast. We'll have a real fun time with it, and always.
So before we wrap and run out of here,
Yep.
is there anything you want us to talk about? Any question you want us to answer? Any question?
So keep in mind, I am still trying to learn like Age of Dragons and like creator races sort of lore. However, I read in the Grotto about the orc gates being created from by the creator races. So this might be an NDA question, but I'm just going to ask anyway. Did they intend those gates to have flooded out orcs?
No.
They did.
No,
Okay.
no. They weren't built for that purpose. What they got used for was some wholesale invasion / migrations that they weren't intended for.
Oh yeah, basically their projects and experiments.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing the Realms has that Greyhawk, if Greyhawk has seen it, it has not become part of recorded history. Gates that were opened, in the Realms case, between real world Earth a lot and the Realms, and from other places, and then wholesale invasions through them. Large armies or entire peoples escaping persecution or in search of a better life who just relocated. Because I had to have some explanation in-game in the Realms for why there were effing Egyptian pyramids dumped into the Realms by TSR. So, yeah, I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was, so, Unser and Mulhorand, yeah. So there are gates, and the Orc Gate Wars, and there are other gates that haven't yet been discovered. And at least one Netherese floating city was ring-shaped because it was a gate. Now, it wasn't a gate, okay, yes, you could use it the way Deadpool and Wolverine travel. Okay, the leaping in midair, the leap of faith, but what it was intended to do is the city landed. You put stuff in the ring, or it landed around stuff, and then when it took off and they activated the gate, all the stuff within the ring went with it. So that's how you did heavy materials transshipments. Like, I need, what's that ad? Where the dog says, we're gonna need about a zillion of those. Okay, so that's how you get all your shape and cut stone blocks from the quarry to some other place.
Yeah.
So
How are we doing for time?
we got 4 minutes.
Okay.
But it'll be a quality 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Yeah, let's get some good questions, some good audience questions. It's always really cool to see.
Yeah.
Just love the participation and the excitement, because you all know, and I really strongly believe, and had a little, not much, but a teeny bit to do with them putting the map, the Mike Schley map back into Greyhawk has had a resurgence. Our community's very, very strong. So we're excited about it. There's a lot of unbelievable fanning publications out there, and so, it's really going well. And I think, Ed, your thoughts on the Forgotten Realms is as strong as ever, right?
Mhm.
Yep. And so we're all really
The
excited.
idea is to make the worlds have a life of their own,
Yep.
so they will outlive the creators and continue to be fun places for everybody else to use, regardless of what publishing companies do.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, 100%.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You can use your tattered old materials that you love. You don't have to move on from them. You're only limited by time and your imagination. So use both of those things wisely.
Yeah.
Because gosh knows, when you go out to a paying job in the real world, they are masters of using your time unwisely. Yep. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
You have a
Yeah.
great rest of the con.
Thank you.
I'm not sure to see if I can raid into someone here because we got a pretty large crowd online. So let me
Okay,
see if I can
good.
raid into.
Yeah.
Give me a second here, everyone. Keep it live. I'm just talking in game online
Do
here.
we have people knocking on the door or?
Let me see what we got.
Yeah, break.
Orc Skull's
Cams
on. Great.
quickly here. Yeah, thank you.
All right, gonna raid into Orc Skull, everyone.
Charles Gygax at
Yeah.
5 o'clock.
We have to find out where the Tower of Gygax hangs out.
Oh,
It's down there past HQ.
go
Oh, okay.
down the
past-
stairs.
Past the armor painters?
Go up the go to evolve. Go up that aisle.
Yeah, it's past armor painters or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. You
that's
hang
where they
right at
told
that
me.
first thing, and you
Yeah.
go right to the end.
Uh-huh, okay.
Out in the corridor.
Yeah.
Right at the end of that corridor.
Yeah, okay, good.
What's that, Tower Gygax?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's past the armor painters or?
Just past. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
there'll be like 3 or 4 tables,
Yep,
and then
mhm.
they're all the way down
You're right.
Yeah.
Right
by
at
the
the
end of
end.
the hall.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
Bones will be down there, Coco's
Yep.
down there, you'll see Curtis, and
Yep.
they're all volunteering.
Awesome, good. Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to do it. I tried. Oh, not gonna be able to. All right.
I figured, Ed, you'd be sprinting off to somewhere else already.
I have something in an hour, but
You got a little break.
yeah, a tiny.